Well, that's it. Just like that, poof, gone into thin air are another about 100 stores that are going to be closing. Well, 93 to be exact. Macy's just announced they're going to be closing 66 stores, and Kohl's announced that they're going to be closing 27 stores. Okay, and how many people work at these stores again, guys? Let's say, I don't know, 50 people work at each of these stores. Maybe it's not that many, but you're looking at least maybe another 5,000 jobs being lost from this. You know, we just saw the announcement a few weeks back with Big Lots closing down all of their stores, right? You had Party City announce they're gonna be closing down all of those stores. Those were over 2,200 stores right there. So that dwarfs this announcement, but what you have to see is how many of these retailers are just closing down so many locations right now, and this is going to have a tremendous impact on the economy. And when you see these announcements like this, like all these stores that are closing down, it doesn't exactly instill confidence with investors or people that maybe are thinking about buying a house or starting a family, anything, because people work for these places. People don't want to have their income unexpectedly taken away from them while trying to make big giant steps in life. And this is all happening right now, guys. In fact, with the Macy's stores, all of these stores are supposed to be closing within the first quarter of 2025. So by the end of March, done. We're already halfway through January, okay? So that leaves these places maybe 2.5 months of life in them. That's it. Kohl's is not far behind. Their 27 stores that they announced they're closing are all supposed to be closed by April. So pretty much within the same time frame, this is all happening. This isn't like something far and away. And you know, what do the people do who work there? You know, forget about the shoppers for a moment, because people can buy most of this stuff online now, right? But what about the people who work there? If you are going to be looking for another job, say in retail, at a time when retail sales are slow and a lot of these businesses are closing stores and not hiring people, what are you going to do? You know, most of these people are going to probably be forced to enter a new line of work, not by choice, but because that's all that's available. And Macy's has been in big trouble for a long time. I've covered their financial woes on the channel several times here in the past, but for the past 10 consecutive quarters, they have been losing money. And there very well could be more Macy's stores being closed down after this, because they said that they're going to be closing down 150 unproductive stores. So this is just the 66 that were announced so far. This could only be barely a third of the Macy's that they're actually going to close down. And they're basically consolidating. You know, they're closing down all of these unproductive stores, and they're going to be putting the remaining of their resources into the stores that are still doing well. But Macy's stock is not responding well to this. It's already been down 15% over the past year due to how poor the company's been doing. Kohl's, they're going to be closing down one of their fulfillment centers in San Bernardino, California. So I'm sure you have at least several hundred people working for a place like that. So here's a house that was purchased back in 2015 for $2.35 million, likely just for the land. They knocked down the previous property and built this thing. And the original listing price was $16,500,000, guys, back in March of 2024. And this is another house that has seen a recent $1 million price cut. So they went from $16.5 million down to just under $15 million. So these houses are seeing $1 million price cuts like it's no big deal. And I think they're going to have to see several more $1 million price cuts to get anything like this sold, guys. How many people really have $15 million to spend on a place like this? So all these people in San Bernardino at the fulfillment center for Kohl's, they have been apparently offered a competitive severance package or the ability to apply to other open roles at Kohl's. So you see a lot of these companies doing this. All these companies that are performing layoffs recently, they say, well, you know, we're closing this location, you're going to be losing your job, but you can always work at the other location that's 30 or 40 or 50 miles away from here or whatever. They tell people that kind of stuff, which just isn't viable for most people. Most people are not going to take anybody up on this offer because it's not practical to, you know, go from working 5-10 minutes away from your house to now over over an hour away. And you know, when I think about situations like this, it helps you realize too that part of the problem is for a lot of people is people are just too geographically tied to any given area, right? Because of your kids, because of your family, because of the house that you own, whatever. You're kind of just stuck in an area. People used to be a lot more nomadic and be willing to move across the country at the drop of a hat for a new job or whatever, but most people aren't doing that anymore. And that also decreases your opportunities. My suggestion for people has always been, if you can't afford a house or you can't find a good job, move. I know the advice sounds very crude and very obvious, but what else are you gonna do? If you're in a situation where you're having a hard time finding a house you can afford, or having a hard time finding a new or better job and there's better opportunities somewhere else, what else are you really gonna do? You're gonna have to settle for a much lower level lifestyle than you want to have if you're not willing to pick up and move. But this trend with businesses is just likely going to continue to get worse. In fact, there was a recent report that in 2024, corporate bankruptcy filings actually hit a 14-year high, guys. What happened 14 years ago? The GFC, or at least pretty close to that, with 694 bankruptcy filings in 2024, and they only consider large companies that exceed certain asset and liability thresholds. So this doesn't even actually include all the companies who are actually in trouble, who are actually closing locations, who are actually going out of business, just the largest ones who file for bankruptcy. Businesses are especially getting hit hard right now with the high interest rate environment, and US companies reached a record quarterly amount of debt of $8.453 trillion. And the funny thing is, ever since the Fed started cutting rates, interest rates are going up on all types of loans. So that includes for businesses that need to refinance some of their debt. So this is just a really bad situation all around for anybody who has any kind of debt. And it still really pisses me off that the savings rates continue to go down at the banks. Meanwhile, the interest rates on your debt continue to go up, guys. It's really a complete unfair situation. The banks are really taking advantage of us right now by doing this, because everybody was offering, 4.5%, 5% annual percentage yields on high yield savings accounts not that long ago. And now it's hard to find one that's even 4.5 or even above 4 in a lot of cases. Meanwhile, mortgage rates jumped from 6% back in September up to 7.5%. Same thing with car loans or refinancing corporate debt or anything else. These guys are scraping more off the top in interest from anybody that is carrying debt, meanwhile paying you less on the money that you're loaning to them. So these banks are really getting away with murder right now. We've also seen commercial Chapter 11 bankruptcies rise by 20% in 2024. So just like I've been saying here on the channel, guys, just be ready for things to be kind of crappy for a while. We're going to see a pretty stale economy moving forward indefinitely. We don't know when or how things are going to turn around or get better. But all we do know is it's probably going to take a long time before it does. Meta, previously known as Facebook, they are one of the companies that laid off the most people in 2024. Well, they just announced that they are going to be making more performance-based cuts. Mark Zuckerberg, who's in charge over there, said he's decided to raise the bar on performance management and to act quickly to move out low performers. So if you're not carrying your weight over at Meta, you can kiss your job goodbye too. So anybody who's going to be part of this next round of layoffs at Meta is going to be informed by February 10th. You're done. So you have barely a month to be informed that you're going to be done over there. Here's what Zuckerberg had to say. He says, Meta is working on building some of the most important technologies in the world. Of course, the future of social media. This is going to be an intense year, and I want to make sure we have the best people on our teams. I've decided to raise the bar on performance and move out the low performers fast. We typically manage out people who aren't meeting expectations over the course of a year, but now we're going to be doing more extensive performance-based cuts during this cycle. We won't manage out everyone who didn't meet expectations for the last period if we're optimistic about their future performance, and for those we do let go, we'll provide generous severance packages in line with what we've provided with previous cuts. So that is the one silver lining too for people like this, right? If you're working for a company like Meta, you're at least going to walk away with a generous severance package if you are on the chopping block. But also, this is a blow to you personally, right? Because this is telling you that you are not good enough at doing your job. And if this is the reason you got laid off, it's going to be difficult maybe to find another job in your field, especially working for a tech company. This is one of the worst fields to be looking for a job right now, considering all of the layoffs we've seen over the past couple of years. And if the reason you got fired was because you're not carrying your weight, good luck. Now, I almost made this next story the top headliner of this video, and sometimes I just don't know sometimes what you guys will find more interesting. So I decided to go with the store closure angle because a lot of people seem to like those type of videos. But here's a new one that I haven't heard until now, which is that Starbucks is now going to be kicking people out if you don't buy something. Starbucks is no longer going to be the free Wi-Fi hangout spot that it's always been. In fact, Starbucks this month is rolling out a new code of conduct for its stores across North America, aiming to improve guests and staff safety and experience. Prior to now, you could linger in Starbucks and use the bathroom or use the Wi-Fi or just hang out, whatever, regardless of whether you buy anything. But that's all about to change. And I've seen some of these Starbucks that have become like just complete homeless hangouts, right? So they don't want that happening either. And so what Starbucks is hoping that this is going to do is reverse its customer traffic problem and its falling sales problem. They're hoping that by doing this, they're going to see more people coming back to Starbucks and buying more coffee, or at least, you know, hey, if you want to hang out here, you got to buy something. So maybe it will work, maybe not. And the employees who work at Starbucks are tired of this everybody's welcome attitude over there, because they're the ones that have to clean up the mess, both figuratively and literally. According to the baristas at Starbucks, they say that having this complete open door policy and not having to purchase anything leads to a lot of messes in the place, loitering, and inappropriate behavior, which I agree, guys. Like, I've been to places like this. I don't go to Starbucks or coffee shops in general very often, but when you do, you can always rest assured that you're going to run into some shady characters hanging out, doing some nefarious things in there. So this is going to be taking effect by January 27th at all 11,000 stores across North America. So basically how the enforcement on this is going to work, which is something that I was curious about, is if one of the employees sees you come in, you don't buy anything, they'll ask you to leave. And then if you don't comply with the request to leave, then they'll have to call the police and have you removed forcefully for trespassing. They're not even going to be giving people free water anymore, guys. That's it. You're done. No free anything. And let's face it, this everybody's welcome mentality can also hinder the experience for paying customers, right? You go into a coffee shop, any coffee shop, could be Starbucks or whatever, and there's nowhere for you to sit and hang out because the people who have just been sitting there all day just leeching the free Wi-Fi and buying nothing are sitting there using this as their home office or using it because they're homeless or whatever. And meantime, you're there making a purchase and you don't get the ability to use the property or use the facilities the way it's meant to be. And of course, Starbucks is another one of these restaurant chains that has been in trouble for a while now. They actually have had declining sales for the past 3 quarters. So pretty much a year already now. So they're trying to do whatever they can to make their stores more inviting and making it more appealing for customers to stop back in and feel like they can be comfortable having a coffee. They're even saying they're going to be bringing back comfortable furniture along with ceramic mugs and plates, not just giving you disposable everything to try and make it feel more welcoming and inviting. This is a big one, actually. They're also going to be offering free refills on hot and iced coffee for customers who buy a drink and want to hang out in the cafes. Well, that's pretty big, guys. I don't think I've ever heard of a coffee shop doing that. You know, you usually never get free refills on coffee when you go into a place like this. So we'll see if this is going to work out for Starbucks. I think they're definitely doing the right thing. It might piss some people off, but if it only pisses off the people who are just there leeching everything for free and they're not gaining anything from it anyways, then who cares, right? Now, earlier I was talking about people who are going to be losing their jobs at Kohl's and at Macy's and also at Meta, right? And people who want to find a new job have to, you know, make applications. They have to submit resumes to places. And I made a video about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, something like that, about this woman has applied for hundreds of jobs and hasn't been able to get one, and now she's kind of freaked out because she's been 8 months without a job and she didn't think it was going to take this long to get a new one. One of my viewers who used to be a recruiter and in charge of hiring people, she wrote me an email about why that is. She says that I used to help out with recruiting at our IT company. She says it's absolutely nothing personal when you don't get a reply. And she said it was normal for when you post a job, get over 500 resumes in the first couple of hours. And that's largely due to the fact that people are using like resume bots or something now. Who knows how many of these resumes or whatever they're receiving are even for real, right? But she says that usually what they used to do is they would turn off the listing after just a couple of days, and they would already have over 3,000 resumes submitted for just one job. They even have filter questions to try to identify the ones they should be reviewing, but even then, they would still end up with hundreds of viable options and viable candidates. So she says there shouldn't be any wonder that you're not going to get a reply, especially if you don't make the first cut in review. She says that people just don't understand the sheer quantity of resumes that each job receives. A lot of the resumes they get are from people who aren't even qualified, so it adds a tremendous amount of work for them to just filter through who's even qualified and who's not. She says basically you need to stop expecting personalized responses on resume submissions now that we are in the internet era of all these job listings being submitted online. And it makes sense, right? Because what can you really expect when they're getting thousands of applications for just one job, and they have to just go through and see how many of them are legit, and then they find hundreds of them who could potentially be qualified candidates. So it sounds like these companies are facing a similar problem like the YouTube comment sections or many other social media comment sections that are also just filled with bots and scammers trying to, steal your information in some way. And that's why today's video is sponsored by Delete Me. Delete Me is a hands-free subscription service that will remove your personal information that's being sold online. Delete Me's privacy experts also remove you from hundreds of data brokers all year long on a continuous basis. Your information is out there on so many different websites, especially if you're somebody who's been applying for a job over the past few months with dozens or even hundreds of different companies, and that data is being stored on their servers and possibly being sold to data brokers without your permission. They might have things like your name, your address, your marital status, your past addresses, your relatives info, court information. It's really crazy the amount of stuff that they have, plus all the additional information that you give them. So if you want to take back your internet privacy, I highly recommend Delete Me. Make sure you sign up and get 20% off your Delete Me subscription by joining today using my link down in the description below at joindeleteme.com/board and arrow, or you can use the QR code on the screen. Now, last thing I want to mention here is rent prices are now declining to 2022 levels in the United States. And before you say, well, it's not a big deal because rents are still expensive, it is a big deal because if you think about this, think about the fact that it's now 2025, so it's been almost 3 years, right? And now we're seeing rent prices at the same level as it was back then, but we've had a lot of inflation in the meantime. So if prices are the same in nominal terms of what they were 3 years ago, but inflation has raged over the past 3 years, that's actually quite the advantage for you as a tenant right now. Right now, the median asking rent in the US is $1,594, which is the lowest level since March of 2022. Right now, the median asking rent is also down 6.2% from its record high in August of 2022, which was $1,700. And part of this is because of the supply. There's been a lot of new rental units hitting the market over the past year, like I've been talking about here. We have vacancy rates now sitting at 8%, which is the highest level since the beginning of 2021. And so this is a renter's market right now. It's a good time to be a renter in the US. Austin, Texas has been taking the brunt of everything, including the housing market crash, because their asking rents fell the most at 23% below the all-time highs. Talk about a bubble, man. They've seen home prices go down by a similar amount. So seeing the rents and home prices come down by close to 25% over the past couple of years, that's a crash, guys. Florida's also seen some steep rent cuts as well. Tampa has seen a 10.4% reduction year over year. Jacksonville has seen a 6.7% reduction year over year. Then you have Nashville went down 6.3% year over year, and New York is down 4.6% year over year. But of course, this is not everywhere. I never claimed that it is. There's still places where rents are rising pretty substantially. Providence, Rhode Island, top of the list, 12.6% increase year over year. Virginia Beach is up 10.9% year over year. Louisville, Kentucky is up 10% year over year. Baltimore, Maryland's up 10%. And Buffalo, New York is up 9.4%. Once again, a lot of those places are in the Northeast, right? So the trend that we're seeing is the Northeast might still have some runway to go for home prices and rents to continue rising. But if you live pretty much anywhere else in the United States except for pockets of the Midwest, you can expect some relief. I think that most people's concern is just going to be keeping their head above water with how much this economy has been slowing down and how many businesses have been going under. It's going to be a tough year in 2025 for people to keep their bills paid. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.